All right, I am going to go deeper into math and deck building theory than I've probably ever done on the channel in today's video. If that doesn't interest you, I have specifically time-stamped the sort of intro of the video into two parts, the math and theory part, and then the actual deck tech for the final build, so view appropriately. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for a legacy video, and we're about to go pretty deep into some deck building theory. Let's start with the idea that was sent to me. Magosi the Waterveil is a land from Zendikar that ETB's tapped. You can blue and tap to put an Eon counter on Magosi the Waterveil, but you skip your next turn. You can then remove an Eon counter from it and return it to its owner's hand to take an extra turn after this one. Recently from the Warhammer 40K set, and by recently I mean recently it came to Magic Online, Out of the Tombs was printed. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Eon counters on Out of the Tombs, then mill cards equal to the number of Eon counters on it. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, instead return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you can't, you lose the game. Our idea here is to move the Eon counters from Out of the Tombs onto Magosi the Waterveil using nesting grounds. So this is 1 and tap to move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent, and we can only do this as a sorcery. So the idea is move counter, take infinite turns, win. Let's take a look at this in practice real quick. Okay, I have set up a situation where I have all 3 of the appropriate cards. So I'm going to go ahead and cast an Out of the Tombs, and I'll pass my turn. So we're now going to put 2 Eon counters onto this, and we're going to do our nesting grounds thing. So move a counter from target permanent onto target permanent. I'm going to pay 1. Now I get my counter over here. I will go ahead and remove a counter, and I will take an extra turn. Now, this in theory starts a cycle of you having infinite turns. But there's kind of some issues here. Number 1, please take a look at the turn counter. Just kind of naturally drawing cards, it took me 25 turns to go and assemble this 3-card combo. Number 2, you can sometimes run into issues where this does not actually go and generate infinite turns when you assemble all of these things, right? So let's say instead we play Magosi the Waterveil. I have now assembled all of my various things. Guess what? This enters the battlefield tapped, so I can't actually start this chain. I can do the nesting ground things and move the counter over here. Like, that is something that I can legally do, but I don't actually start an infinite turn chain. Now, it's randomly turn 26, so I've dumped a whole bunch of lands in play, but let's take a look at what is required to keep this going. This requires every turn 2 of our mana, 1 for the nesting ground, 1 for activating it, plus tapping Magosi and making Magosi as our land drop. So in addition to being a 3-card combo, this is a 3-card combo that requires our land drop and 2 of our mana every turn. Let's say that we assemble this on 3 mana. We have literally no way to win the game from that position because we can never have more mana, right? Because our land drop is locked in every turn to this. Beyond that, we are also going to be vulnerable to any sort of wasteland effect, any sort of stifle effect, any sort of thing that can destroy an enchantment. And conceptually, this is going to be a really uphill battle. And I wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk about math. So we're going to talk about 2 types of math briefly. The first is hypergeometric calculation. This is what you do if you want to figure out the chances of you drawing a single card over a certain number of draws. So let's say that we want to look at our chances of drawing a Magosi in our opening hand. We have a deck size of 60, we have 4 copies of this cards, we're drawing 7, and we get to kind of see what is it that we are working with. If instead you want to calculate what are you doing with an A plus B combo deck, you can use something called a multivariate intersect, which is essentially kind of what's going on here, but is adjusting for you also drawing another thing. So let's, for example, take a look at a chance of drawing an A plus B combo by about turn 3. We can calculate that and see about a quarter of the time we can do that. And if you draw, throw in a few more cards, say that you are working with cantrips, you can see that you actually have a somewhat decent chance of assembling an A plus B combo somewhat early in the game. Now, mathematically, let's talk about why the combo that was submitted today is just not going to work. This is an A plus B plus C combo deck list. So in order to do this, we're going to need to do a little bit more setup than the last two. So we have card number 1 that we want. Let's call it combo piece 1. We have card number 2 that we want, combo piece 2. We want to have one of these in hand. We then need combo piece 3 as well. We want one of that. And to finish building our deck, we have the rest. So we've got 12 cards in our deck accounted for so far. There's 48 remaining cards. So let's say that we want to draw all of these cards by turn 3. So that's our 7-card opening hand plus about 3 cards, depending on whether we're on the play or on the draw here. So let's take a look at mathematically what is happening by the time we are at turn 3. And as you can see, there is a 12.6% chance of us actually drawing our 3 cards if we are looking at 10 cards by turn 3. Uh-oh. Now let's say we are doubling that. Let's say that we are cantripping and digging, and we look at 20 of our cards. We're still only finding those half of the time. Now, this calculation is just how unlikely is it for me to find combo piece A, B, and C. This is not accounting for the lands that you need to go and activate this. So this isn't accounting for that extra land that you would need to cast your spells. This is not accounting for other things like, say, the necessary interaction you need to not lose the game. So we are doing an A plus B plus C combo deck that also requires another land. So our chances of making this happen mathematically are abysmal. And here's the other thing. Beyond this, you need a way to win the game because this is not A plus B plus C wins. This is A plus B plus C gives you infinite turns until you kind of start milling yourself out. And you can maybe assemble some sort of creature package from the graveyard with some sort of Thassa's Oracle type shenanigans that will get you there. That's going to have some real deck building costs. But let's kind of think about how bad is this if I need to draw a 4th card that is my win condition? Let's say that we have 8 easy win conditions and we kind of look at this in the same timeline. See what we're working with here? It's brutal. So while I am happy to play the jank for the channel, this idea is just kind of mathematically doomed from the start because this is so unlikely to actually be assembled in a way that will actually win you the game. So when people talk about A plus B combo decks, that's something that's relatively easy to assemble, especially if you have some overlapping combo pieces. So let's take a look at how something like having Sneak Attack and Show and Tell together in a deck might adjust your math. So let's say that we have 4 Show and Tells, 4 Sneak Attacks, and 8 creatures in our deck. I'm just going to kind of keep things super simple here to just make things easy. So you have kind of two sets of A's and B's that can go together. So when we look at our chance to just kind of naturally assemble an A plus a B by turn 3 by looking at 10 cards, we have a 61% chance of that happening. And by the time we start accounting for extra cantrips, your ponders, your brainstorms, your preordains, like this is going to skyrocket as you have a chance to look at more cards. This is the mathematical difference between an A plus B combo deck and an A plus B plus C combo deck that might require some extra additional help from there. So with all that being said, how do I do something that kind of gets some of this spark, some of this joy across? I don't think the other combo decks that involve these cards are particularly good, so I think the best way to continue brewing from here is actually just to build around this card, which I think has some real potential to do some cool things. So let's go into sort of a proper deck tech now for what I built to take advantage of this card. All right, real deck tech time. I think the way to brew out of the tomes is not to focus on the combo potential, but to focus on the fact that this is an increasing amount of self-mill, right? You mill 2, then you mill 4. If you play a large number of things that care about the amount of stuff in the graveyard, then you can kind of turn this into a bit of an engine. Just about everything in this deck cares about the graveyard in some capacity, or otherwise is just like legacy good stuff that is going to be the glue that is holding together this general deck idea. So essentially, we are going to try to play Out of the Tombs Maverick today. Now, without ever having seen this card in action, I don't know if I am supposed to just like throw one Thassa's Oracle into this deck list so that if we get to the point where I have dumped my entire library, I just have an I win button. I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to do that. My feeling is that, hey, if I just get a free creature every turn, like it does not take me long to overwhelm my opponent anyway. And I think the games will probably be decided before my library is empty. That's kind of the impression that I have. So I took a general Maverick deck list and kind of adjusted it for my purposes here. We are definitely heavier on the graveyard-oriented stuff than normal. We do have access to the Dark Depths Thespian Stage combo, but that's going to be kind of a backdoor late-ish game plan most of the time, rather than something I am looking to turbo out. And because this deck tech and sort of intro has been long enough already, let's go ahead and hop into the matches. If you need some sweet cards from Warhammer 40K or the Big Score or anywhere else, check out toamagic.com. If you use promo code ThrabenU, you'll save 5% on your order. If you're tired of getting 15 envelopes from a billion other sellers and you want everything from one place, TOA Magic just about always has everything you need in stock, from 95% of all of the standard staples to your dual lands and power. Let's battle. I'm looking at an awkward one here. So I have good card, good card, good card, good card. Good land, awkward ETB tapped land, awkward land if things get removed. I'm also off of white, so I don't know quite how to evaluate this one. I am going to keep it. Like, my experience from playing Reclaimer Elves and other similar deck lists is telling me that, like, Gaia's Cradle is fucking broke. And I should just kind of respect the fact that as long as Elvish Reclaimer doesn't get removed, Bayou into Cradle into Fiend Artisan activations will start popping off relatively quickly. But if I don't end up finding the white mana, this is effectively a slightly awkward 5-card hand. I might be playing Elvish Reclaimer directly into Swords to Plowshares here. Am I fetching? I don't think I'm fetching yet. Oh, my opponent does not have very many cards. Oh, we are not doing the sort of thing that I thought. Oh, okay. We win. Good game. Well played. So my opponent is probably red-white initiative. We get to go fetch, pick up a white source, towards a seasoned dungeoneer, go to combat, take the initiative, grab my basic forest. That is my only basic in this deck with how I built it. And then we'll put a second creature into play. We've got the initiative. I can start doing forge stuff. I can start rotating for Wasteland to attack my opponent's mana if they don't put an onboard creature. Hearse is totally fine. That does not currently attack or block. My opponent has to crew it. And that is rough for them. I'm totally fine just making one of these a big boy. I would normally work for Dark Depths Thespian stage. I don't think that's quite perfect here. I think I'm just going to kind of set up this turn. I'm going to leave my 3/4 back so that I can block this safely. I'll just attack with the smaller one of these. Yeah. So I know all this is coming. I am probably just going to get a Wasteland with my turn. I have to keep in mind that like an instant speed Solitude is a thing that can happen. Yeah, I think I am gonna go Wasteland. I actually want probably a draw step stop on my turn here. Another Fiend Artisan. I think I'm just interested in attacking the raw amount of mana. All right, there is the Solitude. It goes after my Fiend Artisan. I wanted them not to have floating mana. Maybe I should have just gone to my main phase, though. This is all fine, though. Like, at the end of the day here, I just have the bigger creatures. I can go 1, 2... Can I not play both of these? If I go Forest Savannah to cast this, this does not make white. Awkward. The 2/2 Knight is not exactly the premium prize. Okay, my opponent is just done. That's fine. Like, I am an incredible favorite to win this game. Like, my opponent has 1 card, 3 lands. This body is awkward. This body is not big enough either. Yeah, I'm not sure if I am supposed to just, like, leave up mana to get Dark Depths so that if my opponent ever taps that Karakas, I get to just kill them or gain 20 life. Hearse is going to be good against my deck. This can stop initiative from triggering. This card is brutal. I am super interested in Dismember as well. I will probably play Outland Liberator and maybe Force of Vigor to just have answers to some lock pieces that are played out. You know, we have like Chalice and Blood Moon style cards. I need to respect those. I guess how many hearses does my opponent have? We saw a main deck one that could just be a flex slot. There's a couple builds running around that have a few. Reanimating an initiative creature, if I kill one, is pretty sweet. But without like Grief or Thoughtseize, if I'm not going to do that as part of a package, I don't know that I like these. I think I'll go down and out of the Tombs. And then Bowmaster is not exactly the bee's knees. It's nice as a flash creature that can take the initiative. I feel like I like it a little better in blue decks. Maybe we do something that looks like that. I also may be over-respecting Out of the Tombs, but we have no experience with the card yet, so I'm going to keep it. It's potentially something that really lets me win the creature size war. This hand is perfectly fine. It's reliant on this for black mana, which is like not the best. And a Chalice on 1 takes out 3 cards in my hand. That's caves, sure. Fable is good. Unfortunately, I'm on the draw here, so I'm not going to get to like Bowmaster and stop this initial trigger. The next question is, do I want to ramp or do I want to just remove this creature? I think I want to remove that creature. I don't think I want to unlock 4 drops in my opponent's hand right now if they don't have a land drop. I don't really want to see something like a Caves of Chaos Adventurer here. If I can leave that stuck in their hand, that's pretty cool for me. Seems like they don't have white mana if they're doing things like that. This is rough. So, broadside copy broadside probably eats me alive. Bowmaster doesn't get me to where I need to be. My opponent can sacrifice a Chrome Mox or the Fable creature token so that I can't ambush successfully. So my play here might just be double mana dork in hopes of doing something more impressive the following turn. And I get my opponent to hemorrhage some of their initial resources, and then maybe they run out of things to fling. I don't currently have fetch lands or anything growing the night, and I can't really Bowmasters without the black from this too. Yeah. Now there's 3 effective copies of those fuckers in play. Understood. Yeah. My opponent can like throw this Lotus Petal, kill one of these. If they want, throw the Chrome Mox, kill the other one. Yeah. A new mana dork. This is still a 2/2. I don't even know that if I outspeed my opponent if I draw something like a Dark Depths. Like, I take 6 damage in combat. My opponent can start throwing broadside copies for 5 each. I think we're just dead. Good God. Try running the same thing back. Maybe I should Thoughtseize plus Reanimate. Force of Vigor's not bad. This hand does not produce black mana. Doorkeeper Thrall is interesting if I make it there. I think I'm going to try for something more stable. Well, this is more stable. It is not exactly great. Because my opponent showed me Archon, I am going to go ahead and fetch now. I also do want to be fueling the graveyard. My hope is that I do not have to pitch cast Force of Vigor for any reason immediately, because I would like to hard cast this and use this to get a Fiend Artisan or equivalent into play. So there's a thing I can hit. Seems like I'm going to eat an initiative creature. You've got it. I have a creature in play. I can contest the initiative, but I can't take it this turn unless I top deck a removal spell, which that is not. So Green Sun next turn, in theory, at 4 mana, can get me Grist and eliminate this, but then I don't take the initiative immediately. So I think we are going for speed bump here. I guess go another Bayou. And we're going to go ahead and kill the Chrome Box and hope that that does something meaningful. It like maybe forces our opponent into Lost Well if they don't have additional mana. Or maybe allows me to set up a situation where I get to attack with this for a point of damage, get the basic forest. Yeah, we did force them off of the most aggressive route. So they topped one. Fuck. Oh, that's rough. So I'm taking 7 damage in combat. I'm at 11. My opponent probably doesn't throw anything with broadside. This, never mind. I lose my mana dork here. Yeah. That was about the disaster case. So now I can't Green Sun for Grist anymore. I boarded out the Tarmogoyf. Not that it would be that huge anyway. Yeah, like I can get a small creature here. I get attacked for 7. I can't super effectively block. I can try. So we can do this for 2 and pick up a Fiend Artisan. And then that can, in theory, trade with Caves of Chaos Adventurer. But my opponent can like play another thing and then just get my Fiend Artisan out of the way. Free combat. Caves of Chaos Adventurer also might just reveal something awful. Just to planes. I think to have a chance, I have to block here. My opponent will still trample over for 2 points of damage. Oh, it's a Solitude. Unfortunate. Oh god, and they get to just throw the Solitude immediately. I gain a little life. And I am exactly dead. That was brutal.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists. And they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out.
Okay, my opponent has kept their hand on 6 rather than 7. And we know we're playing against a blue deck. That's the information that we currently have. Cradle can do some interesting things a little bit later on. I think with the Cradle draw, I am not green sunning this turn. I think I'm just going to get the Mortuary thingy, Surveil land, and bin a card while leaving up Swords to Plowshares. It's a legit forest. Yeah, sure. Could be a control deck of some kind. Could be a Rhinos deck. That's kind of where my head's at right now. It is a control deck. So my Bowmasters will be good. And let's just be lazy and not do this at the end step. Mortuary, Underground Mortuary. Against double basic there, I will throw Wasteland into the graveyard. It would probably have targets later on, but I would rather just have a live draw. I think I am going to sorcery speed this Bowmasters. That feels correct to me. Not give my opponent an extra draw towards Force of Willing this and drawing a card, which would be one of the worst case scenarios here. The things don't look great because I am on double Swords to Plowshares, which is not likely to be super relevant in the short to medium term. Fuck. That's annoying. My Cradle also is probably pretty weak here. Grist is incredible. We baited a Force of Will last turn, so are we resolving? Shit, yeah, we are resolving. The Grist is important because, like, every insect token just represents more mana with Gaia's Cradle, making the Green Sun better. Just raw, literal miracle triumph, no setup is a draw 2. And when this thing dies, it will come back. So even though I have an onboard Grist that can just answer this, fucking stop. Even though I have a Grist that can answer this, I probably want to Swords to Plowshares this so it does not come back. The problem is that if the Swords to Plowshares does not resolve, because my opponent like forces, they draw 3 cards off of it. Which is quite obviously not what I want to see, but I don't think I can let my opponent keep reusing this if I have the chance to stop it. Fantastic. Plus this, I play Cradle, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. I can Green Sun 4x equals 3 and generate a Knight. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I am going to Bojuka Bog my opponent's graveyard and make it harder to do something like Murktide. I just don't want my opponent drawing extra cards right now. I think that matters a lot and will be kind of mana inefficient. But the Grist will hopefully just do good things on its own. This is a sweet Plains art. I like this a lot. We were trying to avoid this. My opponent just had another. Fucking beans, man. Fucking beans. Get out. Please. Damn it. Yeah, this is what I didn't want to see. Alright. So now I have to Grist minus instead. So that still kills the Triumph, but it does not permanently exile it like I would like. So I'll drop a Fiend Artisan. I guess we're just kind of going in now. Could technically do this post-combat, but like it's a 1/1 token. What are they going to do, right? We will pick up a second Fiend Artisan. Hopefully not eat a Terminus for doing this. Terminus and Supreme Verdict are pretty close to game ending right now. We dodged a miracle, but my opponent has 8 cards in hand after making their land drop. So, you know, it is a supreme verdict. Rough. So in addition to killing my 3 creatures, that also denies me a bunch of mana. So, plus, play Knight of the Reliquary. I would like this to resolve so that I can also play Out of the Tombs, which I can't do unless Knight resolves. I'm getting Swordsed, and my opponent gets to Ancestral. The Out of the Tombs with Grist, like, could have legitimately been a deadly laser. There's a Triumph somewhere, and it could have been in that mess of cards that my opponent just drew, and they are likely to put it on top of their library and then redraw it to draw 3 more cards. We are just on the wrong side of everything here. Oh my gosh, a Triumph. Who could have seen this coming? And like, again, I can answer this with my Planeswalker, but how many times can I do this before I am just completely exhausted of resources and Grist loyalty and insect tokens? So yeah, my opponent has 10 cards in hand now. And they get some filtering. Fetch clears. So we're seeing the Xander's Lounge now, which means that Leyline Binding is also in the deck. At this point, I think I probably take my next draw step and concede. I probably win the game before my opponent decks themselves. I guess that's what I'm playing towards, is my opponent accidentally decking themselves with Up the Beanstalk. They do have 3 of them. I'm going to give you the Spark Notes from here. Alright, we're now 2 turn cycles later, at the point where my opponent has the second body and I'm at 15. I am willing to concede. So we can get a Force of Vigor and an Outland Liberator to answer Beans. I can also play Gaddock, which answers a lot of my problems and is tutorable off of Green Sun and Fiend Artisan, so I like that. Pick Your Poison is another way to just get rid of enchantments, and it can also hit like Murktides. I'm pretty good with that. The Reanimates aren't particularly strong against my opponent's exile-based removal. I think those are going to go. I don't know that I need 5 cards to answer Beans. That's kind of a lot. Assuming this game goes on for a while, I'm going to trim a Mana Dork. I'll trim the Tarmogoyf. Swords to Plowshares is like not conceptually the greatest card in the world or anything, but I do need to respect my opponent's large creatures. I think I'll keep all of them. Shave one Out of the Tombs. This matchup can go on for quite a while, and that can be a lot of fuel, but my opponent also has instant speed Leyline Binding to get rid of Out of the Tombs if we end up going that deep. This does not have colored mana. This is like the worst hand ever, right? Like, this doesn't produce mana naturally. This does not give me mana for Green Sun, and it also can't Green Sun for itself. We're going to 5. Yikes. This is fine on 5. I think I just get rid of both Mana Dorks and try to find another piece of gas with Verdant Catacombs at my opponent's end step. It looks like we're just gonna play Drago here. So let's go grab our Underground Mortuary. That's potentially an above average draw. I think I'm gonna say no to it though. Like, I would really like to... The illusion of choice. I would really like to curve into Grist next turn. But I also want to Bowmaster this turn, so, you know. Do your thing. A Savannah. Well, I mean, I know what I'm about. Oh, nice. I wasn't super expecting this to actually work. I do get to put a decent amount of early pressure into play. Oh my god, that's so good. I think we are going for the immediate wasteland on that Savannah. Just try to keep my opponent off of white mana. Send it. After no blocks, we'll Bowmaster again. Push 1 more point of damage this turn if that works. And it does. So my opponent's at 16, then takes 4 down to 12. I have 5 points of power in play, and I destroyed one of my opponent's lands. This is a great start. I lose 1 Bowmaster. That means that I can Grist this turn. That is fantastic. We're just kind of fully looking to go under my opponent's up the beanstalk here. That's 8. I think I'm grabbing another Bayou, or I guess a first Bayou. We'll slam this. I'd like to play Green Sun once I have more mana. I guess this is a reason to actually do Grist pre-combat. I missed a point of damage by waiting, for sure. Anyway, I was saying I want to Green Sun on 4 mana so I can potentially get and immediately pop the flippy guy, whose name I am totally blanking on. So my opponent needs to remove this rather than the Bowmaster now. New Grist? I don't really know that that's better than just continuing to keep my opponent off of white mana and getting a different threat. We'll do this for 2. I'm not sure what I'm getting. Okay, yeah, this is why we're doing this pre-combat now. Pitching a Supreme Verdict, which is not super castable after I attacked the white mana so aggressively. They are at 3. They are at 2. But this could be 1, right? Like, this is the difference between them being able to fetch and not, because I played that creature in my pre-combat main phase. Or I think it was a Grist in my pre-combat main phase. All right, so Tundra gives them swords. Yeah, this is the difference between them having another turn and not, which is massive, right? Like, this game could be over and should be over, but it's not. And now my opponent gets to untap with a number of ways to remove this token and stabilize. We got lucky. I made a very egregious error. I guess Green Sun for Gaddock Teague also should have been on my radar a little bit more. Can I go down 1 swords? Is going down 1 swords okay to put 1 more threat back in the deck? I think no. I think I just need to be able to hold copies of removal spells. I don't have cantrips to find them when I need them, so I just need to have a density in my deck so that I see one pretty much every game. This feels awkward. I'm going to assume that this is fine on the draw, but it might not actually be. It is possible that I should not play a creature this turn, and that I should just attempt to immediately surveil. I have said it. I am thinking about it. I am going to jam the creature. Like, I am very happy trading for removal spells so that my better creatures later can live. Sure. We'll attempt to pick your poison that away immediately. And we have this to try again later if that does not work. So yeah. This is not the greatest trade in the world. My opponent has already replaced this card. So, like, they are already getting their 2-for-1. But, you know, it's what we've got to work with. It's also a mana inefficient turn cycle for me. All right. Third land drop? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Okay, it is there. I really need a land right now. This is an insane draw. I don't think I'm willing to play this until I can protect it with Karakas, because this is like a game-winning level card, I think, a lot of the time. So that I use my mana, I am going to go ahead and play this out this turn, with the expectation that this just eats a sword or whatever. And small mistake on my end, I don't play the Dark Depths until afterwards, so my opponent has to think about whether or not they force it a little bit harder. If I just don't play the Dark Depths, they don't know that I can't just immediately pop that card. But my mana is awkward enough here that I think I kind of just have to do it. Windswept Heath is fantastic. So, Ponder did not shuffle. My opponent found something that they liked. I have 1 Teague. So it's, do I use it now before my opponent has really had the chance to Force of Will something? Regardless, I am always fetching. Let's do that. The issue is that, if I wait, it is just more time for them to find Force of Will, and, they are a cantrip deck. So I'm going to shove this, knowing that sometimes it basically wins me the game, and sometimes they Force of Will, and it is a major blow to my deck to not have access to this card for the rest of the game. Yep. That said, I don't know that my opponent counters an Out of the Tombs or a Fiend Artisan, so I don't know that I can even successfully bait out the Force of Will. Mystic Sanctuary enters tapped. That does not get to do their thing there. Yeah, this is where I want that Gaddock Teague in my deck. This guy's also in exile, which kind of sucks, because I would like that card right now. I think I'm just going to go ahead and shove this card here. It makes my Fiend Artisans and Knights and stuff much more deadly, and is, I guess, technically a way for me to get the Gaddock Teague back, but probably not realistically a way for that to happen. I would be perfectly happy if my opponent just like Leyline Bindings this before I get any value with it. Fantastic. No, that is great. I mean, great in that my opponent played a cantripping removal spell, like, you know. Okay, we've got that covered. It draws my opponent a card, you know, it's insanely good. You know, they are doing the beans thing right now. And we just kind of hope that my swords resolves and then I stick something that matters. Force of Will, easily the scariest card here. And up the beanstalk. Not great for me either, though. So, attempt swords. Okay, that worked. Let's be mana efficient here. Grab Bayou. You could make an argument that Elvish Reclaimer attempting to get the 2020 is the way to go about this. But I would really like to activate Fiend Artisan and pick up a Grist or pick up an Orcish Bowmasters or something of that nature. I'm also not super expecting the Fiend Artisan to make it around the table, if I'm being honest. And that's why. This is the point of the game where I would love to draw Force of Vigor and just kill 2 Leyline Bindings, get 2 creatures back. We are getting Murktided, though, which is not going to give me a lot of time. This is a 3-turn clock, and I've used a Swords already. That's almost good. So I think we are playing both cards, just everything's on the table here. I think we have to Fiend Artisan and Elvish Reclaimer, and threaten a Grist and a 2020 simultaneously. Ugh. This matchup feels rough. I just don't have the raw card advantage that my opponent has. It feels like at this point the way that I win is fully just getting lucky. Like something on the order of like, draw Thespian Stage, my opponent has no instant speed removal left. This is another creature, so I can't actually do anything here. Yikes. I'll remove some ice counters. I'll attack for 2. If you have a creature, you can have my Fiend Artisan. 19. Yikes. So I'm at 2 from combat damage. I can't activate Fiend Artisan or Green Sun successfully. Wasteland is not doing it. That was absolutely brutal. Okay, I don't like the Dryad Arbor in this hand. I have turn 2 Bowmasters, turn 3 Grief. This is maybe fine. I think a few months ago I probably would have mulliganed this hand, but I can also just get Surveil land value off of this. So I think I'm okay with it. And we'll see how scary this Bloodstained Mire is. We're fine with it being a fair one. But if this is just end of turn Entomb into Reanimate, I am not keeping pace with that this game. Okay, cool. It's not. We are going to stare at each other. Could be a blue-black deck of some nature would be kind of my first guess here. I hate showing this card, but that's really not what I'm looking for right now. That's not either, for that matter. I know that my lands have not gotten stifled yet. I'm going to play this and pass the turn. And we'll see if my opponent Bowmasters, and if they Bowmasters, I'll Bowmasters their Bowmasters. Hey, blue-black deck, we called it. Sure. Ooh. This is starting to feel like combo. This land combination is something that I might be seeing out of a Storm deck. We have the wrong sort of hand for that matchup. Attack. Have another Bayou. And we'll get a real amount of power into play. but that real amount of power is not enough to just clock my opponent at an appropriate speed. I don't expect to win game 1 if we are playing against a Storm deck. In the post-sideboard games, like Green Sun Fatigue plus like some Thought Seizes is a very real plan. But I don't think my game 1 beatdown plan is good enough without hate bears like Thalia. I said we weren't looking for that. So let's attack. And then do a post-combat Grist. I think I do it off of Thespian stage. That way, if I randomly happen to spike Dark Depths, you know, my 1 in 47 chance or whatever of doing that, I can create that 20/20. Like, that feels like it matters. Even that is a little slow, though. Like, I am fully expecting to die either this turn or next turn. I would be happy to be wrong. Yeah, here we go. Romux. Pitching Relay. Just to say this in case it happens, I am recording this very shortly after OTJ is legal on Magic Online. So it is possible. Fucking Ant? Or it's just a random Cabal ritual. Ant pilots are kind of back and forth on whether or not they like Beseech, which is weird to me because the card is just busted. All right. Here's LED. Echo? All right, well. Okay, so my opponent has Veil of Summer, so I can't target them. So I can go ahead and target my Orc token with these. And the Orc is going to grow by 1 each time. So it doesn't actually matter. And my opponent has a fresh grip. This doesn't necessarily just mean that they win. Like they did a draw 7 rather than a deterministic line. We're just doing it again. A fetch to Thin first. So we'll do another set of draw 7s. I'll do all the targets on my Orc again. We are up to a 16/16 Orc. And we'll see what terrible things my opponent can do to us. The storm count is 11, so it is real easy for me to die. Okay, that's good. Like, if the turn ends here, my opponent dies to this Orc. Pass turn, pass turn, pass turn. Orc, baby. Meow. I'm very happy that my opponent is doing this Echo of Aeon's stuff. Like, I was terrified that my opponent was just going to have all the time in the world to set up, and instead they made my Orc absolutely massive. And we got pretty lucky. So, Soulless Jailer can stop my opponent from casting non-creature spells from graveyard or exile. Gaddock Teague can stop some of the actual win conditions. Force of Vigor is fine. Collector Oof is actively good. Thoughtseize is great. Fairy, Pick Your Poison, Outland Liberator are all like medium minus. I have a lot of things to bring out though. Like, I don't like Swords. Out of the Tombs is far too slow for my opponent's deck that has the potential to just kill me on turn 1 or turn 2. And then I start thinking about how many of these do I actually want to play. Reanimate feels unnecessary. My opponent is going to randomly be clearing the graveyard, which makes some of the Reanimate Tarmogoyf things worse. I think I want access to this, and I think I'm going to take Pick Your Poison. Fairy isn't always going to stop Echo of Eons, because a lot of times your opponent will discard it with an LED right before they cast it, so there's not a priority pass where you actually get to remove it before they can cast it. This is a 2-power attacker that can technically do some things versus the Beseech lines, though. So I should stop thinking about Echo and think about Beseech, and this is good. What's the worst thing from here? Knight? We, I think maybe a Grist over a Knight. Maybe both Grists? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Well, I have a combo in hand. However, this is not the way that I want to do it. Thanks, I hate it. Keep? Yeah, I think this is thanks I hate it. Like, the mana is bad here. I have a couple of different, like, I have 3 different relevant things that I can do that kind of attack my opponent's deck in some capacity. Um, this is very awkward, though. Yeah, sure. Are we just gonna echo on turn 1? Sure, that's fine. That feels like a mistake, though, right? Like, the Mox Opal taps for any color, the Chrome Mox doesn't. I don't necessarily know everything about their sequencing right now, though. But if they're going to end up, like, keeping Metalcraft for Mox Opal, I think I like tapping this, but if they don't have the other LED already, then maybe that doesn't make sense. My hand has better mana, but is otherwise worse than what I had previously. Oh, okay, we're just echoing again. Sure. So now I have some free interaction. This feels like a good moment to try and stop my opponent. I think I am going to let that resolve and then Force of Vigor the Chrome Mox before there's anything under it. It's a Noble Hierarch. My opponent can have another mana. I just want to, I think, actively deny 1 mana. And we'll see if that ends up being good enough. Denying the artifacts also matters for Beseech lines. Song of Creation is horrifying, though. So, nothing's deterministic at this point. But my hand's bad, and my opponent is doing strong things and gets additional land drops. Like, this could just represent double Surveil if their turn is effectively over. Looks like it's not, though. So Lotus Petal gets sacked for Ritual. That's Threshold. And we'll see how deep they can go. I'm going to give you Spark Notes. All right, Storm Count is currently 22. My opponent has finally found a Beseech the Mirror, so that will just kill me. I didn't play around the one of Song of Creation as something that I could potentially stop with Force of Vigor. I was trying to just like create a mana bottleneck, like a choke point, and I was not successful. I think Knight and maybe Tarmogoyf are better than the Grists, kind of thinking about it again. I largely just need to make it to turn 2 or turn 3, but I only have a handful of copies of Thoughtseize to actually do that. This is fine. I'm going to keep this, get rid of the forest here. And the hope is that we don't get turn 1'd. Grab Bayou, since Noble Hierarch can produce white. And then we have turn 2 Teague, backed by Wasteland. If I don't get Thoughtseized. Let's see. Damn it. I can still Wasteland. Like, Wasteland's still good. I have other Hate Bears in my deck that I can draw. That's sort of a weird card to draw in this spot, because I want to play out this creature. Like, it flipping is kind of a big deal. Like, just getting the free, like, pseudo sinkhole effect if my opponent does not cast spells. This is fine, though. I'd love to top deck some sort of Green Sun effect. Getting a Collector Oof slows my opponent down a lot. This build does have Cabal Rituals, so the graveyard does matter. And it's not like stopping the artifact. Mana just stops everything. That I am not looking for. But we'll take 3 points of damage. And then this flips. I can stop that if I am willing to sacrifice this right here. I believe that I am scared enough to make that trade. It does not feel good, but we might be in an every mana counts situation. That is a Cabal Ritual. I imagine that this last card is like an Echo or a Beseech. The last card is a Beseech. So this is done with Bargain. That gives Gaia's Will, or presumably lethal here. Storm Count's already 8. Yeah, so just Cabal Ritual into Beseech sacrificing the LED is lethal. Yeah, and they can Thoughtseize before they do it for the protection. So there's Beseech. Yeah, and we lose this one on turn 3. through multiple pieces of interaction, right? Like we had Gaddock Teague, that was removed. We had Wasteland, that wasn't enough. We had Outland Liberator, that wasn't enough. Alrighty. My hand is kind of mid. It'll be really strong if Wasteland is good and pretty bad if Wasteland is bad. Just full on sorcery speed, turn 1 Brainstorm. Potentially an indicator of something like Lorien Revealed that my opponent is going to want to use and cycle. Because my opponent is brainstorming this aggressively and I think they have Lorien Revealed, I will just turn 1 Wasteland them, which is not something that was really going to be in my playbook. But I think I am fully in on the land destruction plan now. Yep. Let's restart the game, shall we? You have cast one of the most powerful spells in Legacy. Are you just going to hit the concede button? No, there is another land. Just new Volk, pass. I mean, don't stifle me, I guess. No stifle. Oh, they're out of land. That's a shame, opponent. That is a shame. Dryad Arbor this turn? I think with 3/3 in hand, I'm just going to do Dryad Arbor here. Alright. So I think we are going for a Savannah. And Knight of the Reliquary is already just incredibly thick. There are 3 lands in graveyard already, despite it being this early in the game. Like, we are just full on going to obliterate my opponent, either because I wasteland every land drop that they ever make, or because I just deal enough damage to them that they are dead. Oh. Why didn't you not concede, opponent? Showing that sneak attack is absolutely brutal. So let's go this, plus with this, 3 mana, yeah. 3 mana, yeah. Attack for 7. An attack for 7 should still be fine. I don't think I need to fish out Caracas immediately. Opponent's just at 12, taking 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage next turn. Sure. Like, you can show and tell. I'll put in another knight. It is Omniscience. Well, that's scary. That's not good enough. Caracas doesn't stop that anyway. Like, my opponent can attack me for 15. I can just take that. I will annihilate 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Opponent tried their damnedest. I get why they did not concede now in discarding the sneak attack. Like, they were relatively close to something that was powerful enough to swing the game around. I like Gaddock Teague. I don't mind Force of Vigor and Outland Liberator. Pick Your Poison is okay. Thoughtseize is actively good. Doorkeeper Thrall has some text. Like, it can stop the Atraxa and Archon of Cruelty type cards from doing their thing. It would get in the way of my own Orcish Bowmasters. My Reanimates probably aren't good. My Out of the Tombs is too slow for a combo matchup. I think even one that's this slow. Like, this is very much for the slower, grindy matchups like the fair blue stuff. I still need some cuts from here. I could maybe do something like the Bojuka Bog. It is a black source for the Thoughtseizes, not an untapped one, which is kind of what matters. I think I have enough land that I can cut the ETB tapped land. Tarmogoyf is probably unnecessary. Maybe go down a mana dork to round things out, and maybe I get this in the deck list. I can't really get rid of knights or reclaimers. Maybe I don't do this. I'm very torn on this one. This is a medium-looking opening hand that I have to decide whether or not it is good enough. It has something to just deal with past the turn show and tell. It has a decent thing versus cantrips. It makes land drops. It's kind of an unexciting keep, I think. Sideboard Fury might really blow me out. Basic Mountain, sure. Let's just start developing mana. Can't hold up, pick your poison. It is a sorcery. No further mana from my opponent. Got it. So we'll just, I guess, Fiend Artisan and get an ETB tapped land out of the way, probably. I'll put Thoughtseize on top. That's perfectly fine. I don't think I want to do something like Dryad Arbor this turn. I don't want to make Fury even better. So no Lorien revealed or anything here. It's just straight up kept a hand without access, full access to blue mana. Let's figure out why they did that. I see. It's if they draw blue mana, they just go off. We'll take the Spirit Guide here. And now we know that, like, mana is the bottleneck. So, if mana is the bottleneck, let's do this for x equals 1. Sacrificing the Dryad Arbor. Pick up Elvish Reclaimer. And we can start slowly working towards something like a Wasteland. Or a naturally drawn volcanic island or Scryland or something. This is what we don't want to see. My opponent fetches a non-basic. That is wastelandable. So what? I need to hold up 2 mana to activate Elvish Reclaimer. Do I have 2 mana that I can use for other things? It's probably just casting Bowmaster. Gaddock Teague doesn't get me to where I want to go. This doesn't get me where I want to go. Outland Liberator doesn't get me to where I want to go. Actually, maybe I just get a fucking Knight here. That gets me to Wasteland at the same speed. Attack for 1, turn Reclaimer into Knight. Or attack for 2, turn Reclaimer into Knight. I like it. 17. Junk Reclaimer. Knight just represents better outs versus both Atraxa and Archon. Like, this gives me the white mana that I need to Swords and Archon. Okay. The opponent gets their Show and Tell off. Triggers resolve in are placed on the stack in active player, non-active player order. So my Bowmaster trigger is going to resolve prior to something like an Archon of Cruelty. So everything Brainstorm and below is what they are looking at. So this is what we're looking at here. My opponent will have to discard 1 card. They discard an Atraxa. I know that there's Force of Will over here. So I can start the turn with a Thoughtseize. So I'm just going to take the Force of Will here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this is what my opponent has. I will use the Sorcery Speed Pick Your Poison to make each opponent sacrifice a creature with flying. Like so. I have 8 damage showing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. My opponent can Blood Moon and Ancient Tomb to make my mana situation very awkward. I probably need to hold back Knight of the Reliquary rather than attacking for the maximum amount of damage that I can attack for. I guess I can think about another Fiend Artisan activation instead of 3 damage. Yeah, so there's Blood Moon. Oh, fuck, I don't have a basic planes in this deck, do I? I don't think I have a basic planes in this deck. Definitely don't. Oh, I also didn't consider Gaia's Cradle Fiend Artisan lines. I could have done... Fuck, I could have gotten a Grist in play. I had a better line. Damn it. Yeah, I just messed something up, and it's pretty bad. I'll get the basic, and then Thespian Stage, target the forest, get a second one. I have the wrong hierarch. This hierarch doesn't produce white. And note, I can't just, like, float mana here, because my opponent will just move to the second main phase, and I will waste the mana. My opponent did this in a way, though, that forces them to use their Lotus Petal. I guess it saves them 2 life. That might be relevant. I didn't crunch those numbers. So they Show and Tell. Archon happens. I sack this Orc, discard a Swords, immediately ping my opponent. I guess I just like get an Outland Liberator, get rid of Blood Moon, get rid of Archon, and move on with my life. So activate this, go like, I'll leave this up. 1, 2, 3. Activate this for X is 2. Sacrifice this. Get Liberator. Activate Liberator. Fetch. Get a Savannah. Cast this targeting Archon with Swords to Plowshares. My opponent can daze, and then I will just activate Knight to pay. Or not. Wasteland this. Getting rid of a forest. Keep my colors. I think we're attacking the blue mana here. I hit in for 2, that's 13. I have 8, 12, 13 damage showing next turn. So hopefully we're good. I think I made some mistakes in this one that I've recovered. And we have GG's. So for our final round here, we are potentially going to be playing a grindy matchup. My opponent often plays like Enchantress style things. So if Out of the Tombs is going to shine somewhere, it will be a matchup that goes on for this long. I would love to find a Bowmasters at some point here. We'll buy you. I don't think it matters very much which mana dork I play. My conceptual plan is probably hit my opponent in the face for 20 points of damage. Like, the Wastelands aren't likely to be very good. Speaking of, so do I have any weird Green Sun targets that make sense to do here? Not really. Can't Green Sun for Bowmasters. I guess if I get a Fiend Artisan, I can then get a Bowmasters. I guess that's the way to go about this. It's just a little slow, but a little slow might be fine here. My opponent is going to have cantripping white removal, which we saw versus the Beans deck means bad things for me. And I do only have 2 Bowmasters in the deck, not the full 4. Yeah, no. Goodbye, Fiend Artisan. And again, all basics, so Wasteland does not do Wasteland things, Swords to Plowshares don't do Swords to Plowshares things. Not great for me. We can do some chip damage, but losing the Fiend Artisan was a pretty big deal. This is artifacts and creatures. We've got an Outland Liberator, Pick Your Poisons, Collector Oofs that are good. Okay, my Swords to Plowshares are actually going to do something. That's nice. A lot of times they don't. But the Sithis will already have cantripped a couple times. Like, it is an enchantment creature itself, so like it triggers these. Stronk. Sword Sithis. Play a Hierarch. Play a Dark Depths. I think I will just attack for the 2 points of damage. This is very much an every point of damage matters matchup because my opponent can gain a bunch of life with Sithis. And I've got to just respect that. I am just going to F6 and let them do their thing. Destiny Spinner is good. That's another Swords to Plowshares target. And it seems like they're still setting up, so I don't think I am in danger of dying immediately. Paladin class. So this is slightly disruptive, slightly buffing. The double strike matters a lot with things like Destiny Spinner. Like that gets wild very quickly. So there's a fetch. Oh no. So this is the point where I probably concede for quality of life. My opponent skips their draw step, but they have Shroud. They have 15 cards in hand. I can't deal damage to them. While I am technically not dead to this, I think practically I'm not beating this in game 1 without access to a card that would normally be in the main deck here. Outland Liberator. A Ground Seal. I can bog that giant graveyard. Yeah, like I can remove a Destiny Spinner so I don't immediately die, but I think I'm just not beating Solitary Confinement, and I am okay conceding to that. So Pick Your Poison, great. Force of Figure, Outland Liberator, great. Thought Seize might be playable. Teague has some minor use cases. I think it's just going to be worse for me to shut off my Green Suns. I'm not interested in Reanimate against White Removal. Can probably trim a Grist. I think I want to have access to one of them still. The cuts from here are a little harder. I can probably go down a Mana Dork since I am adding a bunch of other turn 1 plays. I think I like this to grow the size of my threats. It is not a threat itself against a deck that has a bunch of cantripping white removal. Like, that's a bit of a problem. I think I'll deal with that. Go Goyf out. My opponent doesn't put too many cards into their graveyards until they're discarding. I think I'm okay going down one of these. I'm unsure on the last card. Maybe trim one. I don't want to get rid of them, I don't think. This is okay. I think it's only okay. Like, naturally having the Bowmaster in hand would be kind of ideal. Oh, I have the Dryad Arbor in hand. Oh, that makes this a lot worse. Now I can't have 3 mana on turn 2. My plan was Green Sun for Dryad Arbor, and then turn 2 Thoughtseize while playing Fiend Artisan. And then the Fiend Artisan turns the Dryad Arbor into an Orcish Bowmaster later. This is actually, like, kind of awkward. So, like, the Dryad Arbor is basically a dead card, and the Green Sun is pretty bad. I'm just going to mulligan this. Yeah, we have a natural Bowmaster here. I like this a lot. I can turn to, like, Bowmaster and pick your poison. This is fine. I think I'll get rid of Grist. When it's on 6, let's Green Sun. Get my Happy Tree Friend. Yep. That's fine. That's a good draw. Please sacrifice an enchantment for me. And I think rather than Bowmaster, I will just Fiend Artisan. Because my opponent is unlikely to draw cards immediately. And I want to give them the opportunity to use a white removal spell on Fiend Artisan before Orcish Bowmasters. Alright, that's an Enchantress. So, activate Fiend Artisan for X equals 2, put a first Bowmasters into play. Sounds pretty good to me. We'll sacrifice this. Bowmasters, ping you. I'll pick up a Noble Hierarch as well. And note that this is not optional. This happens. Elephant Grass, sure. So my black creatures can't attack anymore. That's a bit of a pain in the butt. But we can remove that. For sure. Yep. And that one double cantrips, so that's a lot of damage. Sure. Am I removing Elephant Grass, or am I making my opponent pay for it? So 1, 2, 3 mana gets me my thing. 4th mana gets this. I get to attack for 5 points of damage. I'm not sure that I need to do that immediately. I think I'm just into this. And for the sake of growing this, I will do an activation. We'll just turn this into... How many lands are in graveyard? There are 3 lands in graveyard. Do I need more mana? I don't super need more mana. I guess I want to fish Outland Liberator out. I'll just get another Hierarch then. So every card draw right now is 2 points of damage and a giant orc, and then hopefully I just Fiend Artisan for my answer to Elephant Grass next turn. Sometimes I get punished by white removal on Fiend Artisan, but that leaves 2 Bowmasters in play. Destiny Spinner, sure. Those go at face. Sarah's Sanctum is a big one. That can allow my opponent to remove multiple things here. Am I going face or am I going at Destiny Spinner? I think I'm going Destiny Spinner. So my opponent takes out the Fiend Artisan, so I can't tutor. And then just passes the turn, so I don't get to kill that. So I get to Wasteland the Sarah's Sanctum. And I can put an Out of the Tombs into play, but the things that I would be growing aren't great to go right now. And I can't legally attack with this. This eats up a bunch of my opponent's mana. We have gotten the full-on what from the opponent upon playing Out of the Tombs. All right, Elephant Grass is gone. It's a pretty rough tax on my opponent right now. It is a solitary confinement. You have Shroud. Okay. If I target Destiny Spinner, they can pretty much just pass the turn. So I guess I will go face here. I have outs to solitary confinement this time. So I can't target my opponent anymore. I can go ahead and target their Destiny Spinner. I'm not actually going to end up killing that this turn. So we'll start milling. Many of my creatures are going to get big. I don't need a Cradle. That can go into my graveyard. My stuff can attack, but I can't deal damage to my opponent. So my opponent has to discard a card, but as long as they continue to draw cards with Argothian Enchantress and friends, like, they can keep this up. I would like to take the Destiny Spinner off of the battlefield if possible. Forest into Green Sun, or another Enchantress. So this now lets me start killing the Destiny Spinner. Put a 3rd point of damage on that, and now I can just start shooting my token. We'll mill. A Grist, huh? This is loss of life? Number of creatures in my graveyard? Okay. No, we're cooking. We're cooking. Plus. Yeah, we might do like the Grist out of the tombs thing that I was kind of hoping that this deck would do. It's hard for my opponent to kill the Grist. I wonder if it will be correct for me to start using Bowmaster triggers to kill things like my Noble Hierarchs. Is this a disenchant? Yeah. Been a hot minute. We're just gonna shoot my tokens with these draws. And we're gonna keep playing this game. And then we have one more draw off the Abundant Growth itself entering. Token is thick. Sure. I imagine that this gets rid of a Bowmaster. Yep. And this can get rid of the other. Like, legit, do I want to kill my Noble Hierarch? Life equal to the number of creature cards in my graveyard. I can already Green Sun for 2 and pop. I kill my Noble Hierarch. And that one just goes here. Would you like to remove my 40/40? No, you're going to leave it? Whatever. So here's 4 mana, so this is probably something scary. Cast out. Oh man, that's target non-land permanent, so that can hit Grist. Unfortunate. Do I have the 2nd Grist in the deck? It, like, matters. Fuck, I don't. Alright. Alright, anything cool discarded? Not so much. We mill a ton of cards. This Swords of Plowshares doesn't do much right now. I imagine that I am dead next turn. Sometimes I'm dead this turn. Still easily got the mana for swords. Ooh. I don't know, I do have a 40/40 that my opponent has to swing through. JK, I don't. You know, you're gonna damage me. You're gonna damage me a lot. So we are fully in This Is Weird territory now. My opponent has to deal 58 damage to me. I have a chump blocker. They have 13 cards left in the library and are effectively drawing cards in sets of 3 or, well, I guess sets of 3. I guess this can give them a way to just attack in with the Argothian Enchantresses. Despite having this many counters on Out of the Tomb, it's not quite getting me to empty library fast enough. It's just more mana. That's a Green Sun. This is potentially just putting the Green Sun back in the deck to avoid decking, which is what we're seeing. All right, Paladin class gets leveled. This is +1/+1 for each other attacking creature and gains double strike. Yeah, that's fine. Wait. Oh, it's not level 3, it's level 2? I thought they leveled to 3. I'll Thoughtseize. I will not Thoughtseize. I have changed my mind. So in 2 turns, I will mill myself, and once I mill myself, I can start bringing back like Outland Liberator or whatever. Yeah, at some point I figured that was going to happen. This is just going to kill me. So this is 4 Destiny Spinner activations. So one of these gains double strike. I'll block that one. And we'll see if this is 56. It is indeed much more than 56, and we are dead. All right, so we've got 2 things to evaluate here. Number 1, how was the deck? Number 2, how was Out of the Tombs? So as far as the deck goes, scoreboard was not great today. It felt like we did not have enough stuff for combo deck lists, and it felt like we were not great versus white removal that is paired with card advantage. None of that's really surprising. Like, we want to be playing against these, like, Orcish Bowmaster Lightning Bolt style decks where Knights, Fiend Artisans, and Elvish Reclaimers just outgrow their creatures and invalidate opposing removal, and that's just not what we played against. So I'm not surprised that we got bullied. We never quite lined up Out of the Tombs to intentionally grow our creatures in the way that I was hoping for when I designed this deck. This was the best of the things submitted in the original idea, and we weren't far away from doing it. Like, I needed another turn cycle or so in this last round of like actually doing the tail end thing. Based on how long that match went and the fact that we still weren't at empty, feels like it was fine to not put a Thassa's Oracle into the deck, kind of like I was originally thinking about doing. So overall, I'm going to give the general idea here a thumbs down. I kind of did the best in salvaging an idea that wasn't going to work, but I don't think I fully succeeded in making Out of the Tombs work. I made a good effort. Maybe you can approach this in a slightly different way. One of the things that I was thinking about was like Life from the Loam and flashback spells and trying to turn Out of the Tombs into an engine in that capacity. Like, maybe you play Out of the Tombs in a shell that looks a little bit more like Hogak. You start trying to mill your Poxwalkers, your Gravecrawlers, and things like that as a way to make Out of the Tombs into a real card advantage engine. I had considered like a one of Life from the Loam from this deck, and just kind of went against it because I need the lands in graveyard for Elvish Reclaimer and Knight of the Reliquary. But this was an enjoyable league to play. I had a lot of decisions. The decisions matter. Like, this was not a brew that got stomped like the original idea would have. We played 5 meaningful games of Legacy that we came up on the wrong side of. So yeah, hopefully there's some deck building lessons here. If you have thoughts, throw them down in the comments below. I would love to read them on this deck in particular. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and if you end up needing some cards, check out toamagic.com and use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. See ya!